Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back for another EVE Online market video. So welcome back again to Jita, the Wall Street of EVE Online, our largest trade hub. I think it's going to be needed because for this video I want to take a look at something that I don't look at all too often. It is the research equipment market, which is a market that I think is pretty niche and you'll mostly find this stuff in large trade hubs. And of course is needed in a lot of stuff. So let's open this up a little bit more and let's just go. You can see I took a sneak peek before I got started because it has several categories. So if we go to manufacture and research, then we have over here the research equipment. What I was mostly interested in personally were the decryptors, because at least some of these do drop from data sites just in regular exploration in HiSec as well. And I've been gathering some more of these. Some of them are highly valuable, others a little bit less, and they of course do their own things depending on the type of research that you're doing, which I think is mostly used in converting Tech 1 BPCs into Tech 2 BPCs, and then you get special boosts and bonuses that these decryptors can give. But let's start with the ancient relics, and here you can see, I think from the shape, that this is really ancient stuff that you find in wormhole space, and if I'm not mistaken, all of this is tied to the production of Tech 3 stuff. So intact armor nanobots, intact hull section, intact power cores, etc. Let's start with the armor nanobots, and this is definitely a pretty eventful chart over the last year, with prices coming back down to the situation we had starting last year. So that's pretty interesting. We start a little bit above 5 million ISK, and then we basically have 9 to 10 months of straight up 5x to 25 million for an intact armor nanobot. I'm gonna take a quick look and see. Yeah, this is for instance for the defensive modules from the different Tech 3 ships, Tech 3 cruisers in this case, and then in August, look at that, very rapid decline back below 15 million, steadied there for about a month, but now in October dipped again and is not worth that much anymore, selling for 9 million ISK. Basically, demand seems to have dried up. We're only at 7 million for a couple of buyers, going down to 5 million very quickly, and so this is definitely something that's quite noticeable. The spread on these sellers is very high, 15 million down to 9 over the course of one front page, and so active supply is very important, because just like maybe 6-7 of them already take 2.5 million off the price as well on all of this on this. So yeah, you won't find this in just any station. Trade hubs is where it's at. Intact hull sections next. So these had a little bit of a more stable period at 25 million ISK on the chart though, and then a very strong summer, bumping up to 50 million in late July, a plateau at around just below 40 million, you could say, August and September, but same story at the tail end here. We are losing a little bit of ground, down to 33 million for the sellers and 28 million for the buyers. That's a pretty decent margin, but again supply in numbers at least definitely eclipsing the buyers that are in the market at the moment. Intact power cores next. We got another one that actually had an early spike as well, up to 15 million. So this one starts out very low, I would say, well below 5 million actually. An average price of, come on, can I get one of these data points? Just 2 million ISK about a year ago. Again, a very strong late July, going up above 10 million, and then at the tail end here, late September, early October, we are starting to decline back and hovering at around 5 million on average. 7 million for the sellers. No buyers. There's just one buyer that's coming in at 2 million. Anyone buying in the trade hubs close by? Yeah, a couple in perimeter, going up to 4 million ISK. But it really does seem like demand is drying up for some reason. Very interesting for those that want to do Tech 3 production, of course. At the moment, it does look like you can grab some pretty cheap bargains. We'll go through more of this list, and a very different chart right here. Interesting, intact thruster section, which is then tied to the interdiction wake limiter blueprint, so another section, mostly propulsion, of course, considering it's a thruster section for Tech 3 ships. And so we start at 10 million ISK, we go pretty quickly above 20, manage to stay there up to August, and then we get this massive pullback in the price from 25 million down to something like 8 million ISK. That's a pretty sharp drop off. Nice recovery in September, and then we're still flat. I would say pretty expensive. 24 million for the sellers, 17 million for the buyers, buying 40 of them, 20 on the next one. A little bit more volume in buying makes a whole lot of difference, it seems, in this ancient relics market. Armor subroutines steady below 10 million ISK, again with the July spike, which does seem to be something that happened quite often. Perhaps something happened here. If anyone has the information, definitely feel free to put that in the comments. But over here, then we go down. What could happen here was maybe the announcement of Tech 3 cruisers losing the skill point loss on being destroyed. It's a possibility. From that perspective, I would say that all of that has been absorbed by now, and the market has stabilized, at least for this one, intact weapon subroutines back to the price range of about a year ago. 10 million for the sellers, 8 million for the buyers. Not that much demand again though. Yeah, kind of the same story. All in. I'm actually gonna leave this one open. All in the same vein here, where we start here pretty low, we edge up most of the time, and then of course here late July we get a spike that brings us at like 10x. Yeah, from 1 million ISK to 10 million ISK late July. Definitely a nice sell opportunity that has been then absorbed by the market. And right here in October we get a final pullback, going back below 2.5 on this one. Still 3.5 million for the sellers, but just 1.2 for the buyers. And this does again show with these average prices, I think it's just more supply coming in, and that includes people that are saying, yeah, there's just so few buyers and it's so much selling that's happening over here. I'm just gonna dump to a buyer and be happy with that price. And thus you get these average prices that are way below the sellers, but a nice opportunity of course for manufacturers to pick these up at a good price. Same July spike, still not absorbed in the malfunctioning hull section, still going for a little bit less than 10 million, where we start below 5 million at the start of the year. Malfunctioning power cores, same story again, with a bit of a premium, but you know, below a million, definitely affordable. Thruster section, same story. Look at that lovely July spike. And then here in October, a little bit counter to what we've seen most of the time here, still going up, but again it's relative. 2.5 million, still below 5 million. It's actually still within a decent range. Malfunctioning weapon subroutines here, again very nice July spike from, let's see where we started this one at, 1.5 million going up to easy 7 million, back down pretty quickly, and then at 2.5 million with an October slump back to the previous normal levels. So there's definitely something that happened somewhere in July. Not for absolutely all of them, but you could also see that the range, whenever we see a completely different chart, seems to be different. 30 to 40 million at the start of the year. We're actually at a low point here for small intact hull sections. Is that for the destroyers then? Yeah, this is for the destroyers. Very interesting that we're seeing this. Honestly, from my perspective, this is super surprising, because if you follow Eve Talk, you know that except for the Minmatar one, we can actually take a quick look at that on the quick bar here. Take 3 ships. So except for the Zwepel, that's, you know, under pressure and has stayed below 45 million. Actually, the Confessor, look at that. Almost 50 million ISK again. Hecate selling for above 50 million for the last couple of months, and then the Jackdaw going up to another high point at 55 million. I would honestly have thought that the Zwepel would do the reverse of what it's doing, but it's actually going down in price even more. But all of this then, and then looking at where were we here, small intact hull section at definitely a low point, like way more than 10% less than a year ago. Quite a surprise to see these massive prices on some of these destroyers. 18 million for the sellers, 17 million for the buyers. Definitely stronger demand once we get into destroyer section of these ancient relics. Small malfunctioning hull section, same story, 1 year low point, losing 3/4 of the price from about a year ago. Complete counter response. So maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this, and if you actually know what happened in July here in the comments. But perhaps the expectation for the market, and bearing out at least for destroyers, is that whatever it is that happened in July would make the cruisers more popular, and then as a consequence of that, people were assuming that the destroyers would lose a little bit in popularity, actually a lot in popularity, seeing the price crater like this. I may be wrong on that. Let me know in the comments if it is indeed the loss or the removal of the skill point loss whenever you get blown up in a Tech 3 cruiser. So expecting a little bit more of the same for the small erect hull section right here. Yeah, down to 1 million ISK apiece. Started the year at probably 5 million. You can't really see it on the chart, but you can see we get this high volatility, but bottom at 2 million, and then here eventually we completely break down. We got a couple more to go through, but wrecked armor nanobot, I'm gonna assume this is gonna be Tech 3 cruiser related. Yeah, look at that, defensive structures for all of the cruisers. And then we again have the exact reverse, so the July spike and then the recovery in September and October. Hull section, same story again. Power cores, same story again. Thruster section as well. And then the weapon subroutines, exact same story. So this is what's happening with the ancient relics. Very, very interesting, super volatile spike in all the cruiser related relics going up in July, but recovering at least most of them at this point, and then a massive slump in these small hull sections for the Tech 3 destroyer market, which is a very big surprise considering the prices that we are seeing for Confessor, Jackdaw and Hecate. So alright, interesting for sure. Speculation wise, honestly, a lot of these are basically down at the end here, so I would not say that this is a great time to try and sell, but if you're looking for maybe an investment into potential Tech 3 production for later, it does look like a good time to load up on some ancient relics. Next up, we've got the data cores. We'll try to go through these a little bit more quickly. As these are, I think, they're definitely loot drops from data sites, potentially relic sites as well. But if I'm not mistaken, there are still agents in the game that just farm these passively, and so I don't expect too much in this section. And it's 75k unit, so it's not like this is that high value. A Marian Starship Engineering, pretty high, I would say, at 75,000. Kaldari Starship Engineering, actually high as well, and going up, worth more than 100,000 ISK a piece. Then we've got a Core Subsystems Engineer. This one has an August spike and then down to a pretty low level at the moment, just 7,000 ISK for the sellers, less than 3 for the buyers. Really big margin on that. Data core defensive subsystem, is that also then going to be tied to Tech 3 production to have? Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's interesting. To see this spike, it felt a hell of a lot like what we just saw in the ancient relics, but like with a delay of maybe a couple of weeks. Could be really interesting information, of course, if we then keep an eye on this market and see if it does have any predictive capabilities for some of these, at least for the subsystems parts of these data cores, which does seem to have been the case here. Then some more generic, 100,000 electronic engineering, 100,000 Galente Starship, 100+K. All of this is pretty decently stable, 100 to 150. I mean, that's a pretty decent margin, and there's definitely some movement there. But trading an item that's worth like 100,000 ISK, not always that easy, I don't think. High energy physics, 90k, pretty normal. Hydromagnetic physics, also 100,000. Laser physics, 80k. Yeah, all of this is pretty stable and not very expensive. Minmatars, Starship, all right, same story. Some highs, some lows, but in general, definitely in the affordable section, nothing too surprising. Offensive subsystem, so we're expecting Tech 3, and here again, lovely August spike that has been fully absorbed by the market, but showing that relationship between these ancient relics and these data cores. That's definitely interesting. Plasma physics basically also doing well after the summer. Subsystem, August spike again. Quantum physics, rocket science, 100k, so nothing too special to report here. And then we get the Triglavian quantum engineering. That one, is that newer, or is it already a year old? It is a year old. A little bit of volatility at the beginning, but basically very stable at relatively low price on this chart. 40k for the sellers and no buyers. 860 ISK. Okay, that's a crazy buy order thing, so I'm not really sure what this is used in. Let's see, is it just used in the production of these Triglavian ships, but not really finding buyers. I'm gonna guess that a reason for this could be that it's in the player on trade hubs, I thought, but no, that's not what's happening either. That basically the production of these ships is now really focused in the Triglavian space itself, and that rather than moving data cores around, they'd rather export the finished ships or something like that in order to make the ISK. It's just a theory though. But yeah, the data cores in general, the Tech 3 related ones have that August spike, all the others 100k below, above, but nothing too special to report there in my opinion. And then the Triglavian one seems pretty cheap with no real buyers in Jita. Next up, we've got the Decrypters, my drops from the data sites. Let's see how these are doing. With accelerant Decrypters definitely at the low end of the range, starting at 400,000 ISK, we're just a bit above 300k at the moment. 360 for the sellers, 322 for the buyers. Definitely a little bit more interest in this, as it is of course used in the invention for Tech 2 blueprint copies, and so there is a constant use and consumption of these items as well, but at the moment it looks like it's definitely pretty low in price, at least for the accelerant. Attainment was pretty high at 2.5 million, but is dropping off at the moment in October. Still 2.5 for the sellers, maybe a little bit less demand at 2.1 million, but overall this feels like it's still a pretty good market. Augmentation Decrypter definitely lost a lot of ground since the start of the year, but let's say the last 10 months or so stable around 750. So that's one that I think drops quite often in HiSec. Optimized Attainment Decrypter going for 4 million. This one could definitely be seen as expensive, although not outrageously so. 4.6 million for the sellers, a little bit below 4 for the buyers. So, you know, if you need these items, put up a buy order. It's definitely going to save you a little bit of ISK. Optimized Augmentation Decrypters going for 3.5 million. Then we get a Parity Decrypter. Ooh, that's another kind of an interesting one. July, August, pretty strong above 1 million, but look at that October action, lots and lots of volumes and a massive decline in price, and then a slight bump back up, but from pretty much a 1-year low point at less than 750,000 ISK. That's a pretty sharp decline. We're back to still below 1 million for the seller. So do all of these or a lot of these. So these two do not, at the range of 3.5. I'm gonna guess they're not HiSec related. This one is low, this one is dropping in October, this one is low. Process Decrypter dropping massively in September and October, back to a low point as well of 300k for the sellers, and a Symmetric Decrypter also very, very low. My theory on this, it's all of the new player focus that we are seeing here in September and October in this current quadrant of Gateway. This will automatically, I think, be bad news for mining. If you follow ETH Talk again, you know that minerals from HiSec are under pressure, are definitely doing worse in average price than, let's say, throughout the summer. And I think it's going to be the same for these HiSec available decryptors. What tends to be easy to jump into as a new player, well, HiSec mining is definitely something that's easy to do. HiSec exploration, same story, especially for data sites and relic sites. So these seem to be, to me, under pressure at the moment on a lot of new player activity. That's my read on these. And then we get the RDBs, which I think we can basically skip or just quickly cover because there's like next to no availability and it's tied to some Take-Two stuff, but I think it's basically, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments, but is this like, you need so little of it that it only costs 600 disk or 1400 disk in order to get one. I think this also dropped from exploration. But in general, yeah, this is not really a consequential item at the moment in industry, as it's basically 500 to maybe 1000 disk, which is super cheap. So definitely a part of the of industry or research, I should say, that is at the moment not super important to cover. But in general, honestly, pretty interesting market. Decryptors, I think, as I've said, a lot of these will be dependent on new player activity, and then both for the data cores and these ancient relics, seeing this counter move, this nice spike, high price in July for the Tech 3 Cruiser related items, and then seeing that massive counter move in the destroyer related markets, and yet the price wise it's the complete opposite for the ships at the moment, is very interesting to me. So definitely something to look into a little bit more perhaps later. But yeah, as I've said, I think it's a great time to buy if you are someone that uses or plans to use these research equipment items. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. This was a look at the research equipment market, and as always, I'll see you next time.